Chapter 6. A Good Hose. Trixie took a deep breath through her nose and let out a sigh. Pineville Park was a lovely place. Perhaps one of the nicest parks Trixie had visited. It was calm, quiet, and had a deliciously subtle air about it. What was more, Twilight Sparkle was even making for not unpleasant company, as unlikely shh as that sounded. Guess who's home? Trixie decided to stop visiting her visit to Exandria to check out what's going on here. So, what type of fic are you doing today? Oh, Trixie! Trix, I just realized we need some spare ingredients. Ingredients? For what? For the Sonic the Hedgehog chili that I want to make. Why don't you go over to Mobius for a few days and try to find it? Well, Trixie supposes you. Did I remember to take her portal ring this time? It'll be fine. It would have been so much better, though, if not for the irritating caster on Trixie's leg. Are you alright? Asked Twilight, as Trixie bent down to bite at the offending woolly thing. Fine, grunted Trixie. This thing is just getting itchy. Twilight frowned at her. Maybe you should sit down, she said. Trixie stopped gnawing at the cast to offer her a warning glare. Or not, said Twilight, waving her hand dismissively. But we have been walking for quite a while, and it wouldn't take hard to take a little rest. Trixie rolled out her eyes and drew up to her full height. If you are tired, Twilight Sparkle, Trixie supposes we can stop for a minute. Twilight giggled quietly. I am, and thank you. She glanced around him, smiling as her eyes settled on the outdoor parlor across the street. How about over there? Trixie followed her eyes and nodded. Together they started towards it. Sadly, Trixie had to admit she was a little tired. Walking on 3 legs wasn't nearly as easy as it sounded. The place was empty except for a couple of earth ponies having lunch, so it was easy enough for them to find a table. Trixie let out a contented sigh as she settled herself on one of the small hay stools, while Twilight stood smiling at her. I'm going to get a sandwich, said Twilight, nodding towards the building behind her. Would you like something? Trixie's stomach offered his opinion with a quiet rumble. Trixie will have one as well, she said, returning Twilight's smile. Well, not, Twilight tried it off to get their lunch. Trixie watched until the tip of Twilight's tail had finished through the door, before turning to smile thoughtfully with the Teefel. Maybe this won't be as hard as I thought, she mused. After glancing around to make sure no pony was looking, she conjured the same brown paper envelope as before, staring at her front. She's the secret to help me then. It was only another moment before her smile fell into a frown. But it's not really the same, is it? Slowly, she drew the letter out from the envelope and held it in front of her nose, running her hoof down the page to check it was still real. A silly notion which she quickly shook from her head, the horn riding on the letter just as she remembered it. Dearest Trixie, I know that it's been a while since we last spoke, so I hope this letter doesn't come to you as a surprise. Nothing surprises Trixie, she muttered quietly. I don't know where to find you. I never do. So I hired this carrier to track you down. I trust he made a good time delivering this to you, and hasn't arrived too late. I'll enclose something you think you'll find quite interesting. Trixie grunted, remembering the first time she read the letter. You always did have a way with understatement, she said with a smile. What's that? Asked Twilight, startling Trixie just as he appeared beside her, offering a pair of sandwiches on plates. Trixie hurriedly vanished her letter and envelope, while Twilight took her seat. It's nothing, said Trixie. Just a letter. Twilight smiled at her curiously. From who? A friend? She asked, passing Trixie's sandwich across the table. Trixie averted her eyes. Something like that. Does it matter? No, sorry, I was just being nosy, chuckled Twilight. She touched her to the sandwiches. I'd be like Daffodil and Daisy. They didn't have anything else. Trixie gave a nod and a faint smile, magically lifting her sandwich and taking a generous bite. Twilight did the same, and the two of them sat and chewed in silence for a while, content to enjoy the food in peace. When Trixie swallowed her first mouthful, she met Twilight's eye. Thank you, said Trixie honestly. Twilight almost choked on her own sandwich. But pardon, she coughed. Trixie isn't going to see it again, she said, turning her nose up. That was for everything you've done for Trixie up until now. Don't expect any more. Twilight managed to compose herself and swallow her mouthful without too much fuss. She looked at Trixie with a sponsored smile. So you believe I'm not doing this for my own benefit? Trixie smirked and waved her hope dismissively. Trixie still thinks you're up to something, she said slyly. But even if you are, Trixie is grateful for her. She cut off and glanced away, unable to say it. Trixie is grateful, she finished. Twilight caught her head and gave a wonky smile. I feel like I've missed an episode, she said. Twilight, I want to let you know, I bet some people who actually view my videos do feel like they've missed an episode. Because for some odd reason, my view counts jump all over the place. Like, the previous story. Some viewed one part only a few times. Others, there were over 100. I don't understand it. I don't understand how some people could be watching one episode and then go, I'd like to skip part 2. I can't understand it. Trixie rolled her eyes. Forget Trixie said anything, you irritating unicorn. That's more like it, said Twilight, smiling wider. She giggled a little, and Trixie couldn't help but feel a little warm for hearing it. It was a strange feeling, as if Twilight's laughter was somehow infectious. Determined to keep her cool, Trixie raised the sandwich and took another bite, restricting herself to do nothing more than smile. Trixie knew it didn't add up. The great and powerful Trixie, sharing lunch and playing with Twilight Sparkle, unmatchable. While at the same time, she couldn't bring herself to care. Somehow, even with her wounded leg and the looming worries that the letter brought with it, she felt better than she had in a long time. It couldn't possibly be a bad thing, could it? Twilight? Trixie? Came a voice from behind. Snapping away from her thoughts, Trixie looked to Nurse Redheart, trying over to them with a curious look on her face. Nurse Redheart, said Twilight, scrambling to her hose. I didn't expect to see you here. Is everything all right? I was just passing through and I thought I heard your voices, said the nurse as he came to a stop beside the table. Trixie followed suit and rose from her seat, and the nurse's eyes went wild. My goodness, I wasn't expecting to see you up and about so soon. Trixie grunted and flicked back her mane. Clearly, you'd never met a unicorn as great and powerful as Trixie before. Twilight rolled her eyes, smile, whilst the nurse put a hook to her chin, and leaned in for a closer look at Trixie's leg. Clearly, she thought mournfully. How are you feeling? She reached out and started prodding at Trixie experimentally. Just fine, thank you, snapped Trixie, recoiling from the touch. Stop, Trixie! What's the way you put your hose? Oh. The nurse grunted the nurse, drawing back with creased brow. Trixie, have you been able to move your leg at all? Move it, repeated Trixie. How unexpectedly do you expect Trixie to do that? You put it in a cast, which is incredibly irritating, by the way. Oh, really? I wish I brought my cupboard. I heard the nurse sort of frown. Here, let me try something. Now, you tell me this hurts, all right? Before Trixie could eject, the nurse leaped forward and bit down on the upper part of Trixie's cast. She glanced up experimentally before pulling back, undoing the knot that tied to Trixie's chest. Trixie stifled surprised gasp as the cast fell to the ground, and the leg's weight returned to her. Twilight, the nurse, watched with differing looks of anxiety as Trixie flexed her newly restored foreleg. I can move it, Trixie muttered, but you said... Trixie, wait. Trixie gave a pained yell as she touched her hook to the ground, biting her lip as a tear came to her eye. Oh my gosh, are you right? Cried Twilight, hopping forwards and laying a hoof on Trixie's back. Trixie quickly shook her head to compose herself and struck Twilight's hoof off. When she opened her eyes, she saw Twilight a few inches from her face, looking more worried than she had ever seen her. Trixie's mouth fell open as a familiar, dark feeling swept over her. Yes, Trixie muttered, unable to tear her eyes from Twilight's. I'm fine. Twilight's expression receded only a little as she cocked her head to the side, as if scanning for some trace of a lie. Trixie found herself too confused to speak. For a moment she just stared at Twilight, before finally shaking her head and looking over at the nurse who was frowning. I'm sorry, Trixie, she said. I should have warned you. In cases like this, simply moving the leg is the easy part. But as soon as you put weight on it... Yes, Trixie figured that much out for herself, she snapped, with a trouncing glare. Nurse Redheart looked away. But that's a good sign, isn't it? said Twilight, hopefully, glancing between the two of them. The nurse turned to meet their eyes. Yes, you're right, it is. She said, brightening up a little. I admit, I don't have a lot of experience with injuries from the Everfree Forest, but I expected it to be at least a week before we could take the cast off. Twilight offered Trixie a relieved smile. I guess you got lucky, she chirped. Trixie, still feeling the outer aches of her foreleg, grunted, That's not the word Trixie would have used. If this keeps up, you'll be fully recovered in no time at all, said the nurse, turning to offer Trixie a smile. For now, though, you'll simply have to take things slowly. And I'll need you to put the cast back on, just for a few more days, she added firmly, countering Trixie's glare. After that, you should be able to start the next stage of your treatment. The next stage? Said Trixie, furrowing a brow. What do you mean? The nurse shook her head. Don't you worry about that now. I'll explain later. She bent down and picked up the cast, looking it towards Trixie's leg. Trixie considered pushing her away. She wasn't eager to have the itchy cast back. Twilight, as though sensing Trixie's objection, drew her an emphatic look. After a moment of staring, Trixie helped to let the nurse go about her work. When the cast was firmly reattached around her foreleg, Nurse Redheart stepped back. Trixie tried to move her leg, but found it completely pinned. She glared at the nurse. Could you make it a little tighter? Trixie still thinks he has the circulation. Trixie! Twilight hissed. Though there was a definite hint of a smile on her face, she turned to her nurse. Thank you, Nurse Redheart. When should we come back and see you? How does Friday morning sound? Said the nurse. Trixie rolled her eyes and groaned. All right, Thursday then, the nurse conceded, but no earlier. These things can't be rushed. Twilight gave Trixie a searching look. Fine, said Trixie. Thursday! Trixie can't wait to get back on her own four hooves. Hey, getting back on your hooves! Ow. The nurse flashed her a smile before turning to Twilight again. Twilight, can I have a word with you? She gestured to one side meaningfully. Twilight nodded. The two just strode over to the side of the parlor, leaving Trixie alone at the table. With a huff, she turned to her sandwich. Well, I have nothing better to do, she mused, magically lifting it up and taking another bite. She only heard snippets of the conversation as he sat there. Both Twilight and the nurse were speaking in hushed voices. As far as Trixie was concerned, it was incredibly rude of them to exclude her, so it was only fair she turned her head to listen properly. You sure you won't need any more sedative? Asked the nurse. I think we'll be fine, chuckled Twilight. And I still don't think that was very nice of you, by the way. I was just doing my job, Twilight sparkled. But you're right. You will be fine. For two ponies who don't see eye to eye, you certainly seem to get along well. Trixie quickly turned back to her sandwich as Twilight looked in her direction. Sometimes ponies can surprise you, said Twilight thoughtfully. The nurse chuckled. That they can. When Trixie chanced another look at him, she saw the Nurse Redheart had a hoof on Twilight's back. Keep doing whatever you're doing, Twilight Sparkle, she said with a warm smile. Trixie's in good hands. Thank you, said Twilight, returning the smile. As the two of them shared a quick hug, Trixie went back to finishing up her sandwich. Chewing slowly, she mulled over what she heard. Spike, we're home! Trixie followed Twilight Sparkle over the threshold and frantically closed the door behind her. Twilight gave a content sigh as she breathed in the scent of the library, while Trixie stood awkwardly inside the door, wondering what she was going to do now. Trixie turned to smile at her. So, what do you think? Trixie raised an eyebrow. About what? About Ponyville, said Twilight, as it was obvious. Pretty place, isn't it? Trixie rolled her eyes and glanced towards the window. Trixie supposes so, she said dismissively. Twilight frowned at her, clearly expecting a more enthusiastic answer. Trixie hopped and fixed her with a condescending smile. Trixie enjoyed our walk, Twilight Sparkle. Twilight rolled her eyes and shook her head at Trixie's demeanor. Glad to hear I'm such a good host. Trixie wouldn't go that far, said Trixie with a smirk. Twilight chuckled. All right, Miss Big Time Showmare, how about you cook dinner tonight? She countered. Trixie pretended a huff as she walked over to the nearest table and took a seat. Fine! Trixie supposes you are a good host, Twilight Sparkle. That's better, Twilight chirped, trying over to put herself and idly rearranging some tiles with her magic. She glanced again over at Trixie. So, good news, huh? Yes, Trixie said, hiding a proud smile. Trixie will be back on her host soon, and then she can... She broke off. Yes? Twilight prompted, her eyes still focused on her books. Nothing, said Trixie quickly. When Twilight gave her a questioning look, Trixie simply shook her head and tried to change the subject. Did the nurse say anything to you about the next stage of treatment? No, said Twilight. I'm sure it's nothing we need to worry about, though. Nurse Redar is very good at her job. Trixie supposes so, she could see with a smile. So Twilight went back to sorting her bookshelf, while Trixie frowned down at the table and thought. News of recovery was going more quickly than expected. It was of course good to hear. It also brought something of a time constraint. As soon as Trixie was fully healed, she had no excuse to stay in Ponyville. She already told Twilight she was just passing through. Going back on that word would bring up more awkward questions. You'll be fine, she assured herself. I'll talk to her soon. Trixie looked up to find Twilight staring at her unexpectedly. Did you say something? Trixie asked. I said, would you like me to get you something to read? Unless you'd rather do something else, said Twilight. Oh no, Trixie will manage. Twilight smiled. Okay, well if you need anything, just shout. I'll be upstairs. I need to report to the princess, she said calmly. Trixie furrowed her brows. Twilight headed downstairs. The princess? She repeated. Twilight stopped in her tracks and looked back at Trixie with a sheepish grin. Oops, she muttered. It's kind of a long story. Not really that interesting. Trixie wants to hear it, Trixie interrupted firmly. Huh. Twilight grunted, looking down in thought. She took a moment before meeting Trixie's eyes again. Okay, I guess. Why don't I tell you over dinner tonight? Trixie found herself smiling and gave a quick nod. Trixie would like that. Interlude. Is my hair alright? Should I brush it again? Maybe I should do my Ugh! Growled Spike. For the 100th time, your hair looks fine, your hair looks fine, your hose looks fine, you look fine. What's gotten into you? Since when do you get nervous about telling ponies you're the princess's student? Twilight rounded on, knocking her dressing table as she went. This isn't a pony, Spike. This is Trixie. And Trixie is different because... Twilight huffed and fell back on her haunches. I don't know. What if she gets jealous, or what if she thinks I'm making it up? I've only just gotten her to start trusting me, Spike. I don't want to ruin that. Spike put a claw to his face. Twilight, you're making way too big of a deal out of this. Anyway, didn't she ask you to tell her? Well, yeah, muttered Twilight, but I rest my case, said Spike, folding his arms around his chest. Twilight opened her mouth to argue, but she realized she didn't have anything more to add. After a moment staring at Spike's resolute stance, Twilight finally gave a sigh and got to her hose. Fine. Spike smirked and opened one eye. That's what I thought. Twilight parried him as he trotted over to the door. Partway over the threshold, she stopped. You sure you don't want to join us? She called back. No, I'll pass, said Spike, waving a dismissive claw. You two have fun, though. Yeah, with a smirk. Twilight rolled her eyes and stared down towards the lobby, magically choosing to close the door behind her. She took the stairs at a slow trot, more than once stopping to run a nervous hope to remain. When she reached the bottom, she saw Trixie was already sitting at a table, her head atop her hoof, looking thoroughly bored. It's about time, said Trixie. What were you doing? Rehearsing. Trixie's salad is getting cold. Twilight cocked her head to the side as she strode over to Trixie's table. Your salad was always cold. Trixie fixed her a deadpan expression. Yes, it was. With a little giggle, Twilight climbed up on the stool opposite, pulled her own bowl of salad towards her. Sorry, we can get started whenever you're ready. Take your time, said Trixie sarcastically. Twilight gave her a sheepish grin. Oh, right. So, you want to hear about the princess? Where should I start? It's your story, said Trixie, shrugging. How about telling Trixie how some pony from the backwater town of Ponyville even got to meet the princess? Twilight threw her brow. Huh? Who do you mean? She cut herself off as she raised an eyebrow in understanding. Oh, you mean me? Trixie rolls her eyes. No, Trixie means Rainbow Dash, she deadpanned. Of course Trixie means you! Twilight giggled, shook her head. Actually, I'm not originally from Ponyville. I was born and raised in Camelot. Camelot? Trixie repeated, raising an eyebrow. You? That's right, said Twilight. Why do you sound surprised? Trixie blinked and shook her head and refocused. Trixie isn't surprised. She just finds it a little hard to believe. Trixie has been to Camelot, Twilight Sparkle. The ponies there are nothing like you. She broke off mid-sentence. Her cheeks suddenly gained a hint of red. What Trixie means is that they're all snobs. Twilight finished heavily. Trixie stared for a moment longer before closing her mouth and nodding. Well, I grant you that a lot of ponies in Camelot are like that, but not every pony. My ponies are nice ponies, and they didn't believe in all that high-born elite nonsense. Trixie sees, muttered Somare. Well, at least that explains how you got to meet the princess. Toy smiled and nodded. She traveled around Camelot quite a lot, for some pony with all her responsibilities. The first time I saw her anyway, was at the Summer Sun celebration when I was just a little filly. Twilight told her everything. The whole story that ended with her greeting her, hearing Mark and getting enrolled into Princess Celestia's school for gifted unicorns. It was nice to tell the story out loud, and nicer to see had an audience that didn't seem fit to interrupt every 2 minutes. Trixie was silent almost the whole time. She just sat, watching and taking every word until Twilight finished her recount. By the time the story had finished, though, Trixie had a quizzical look on her face. You turned your parents into flower pots, she muttered. By her tone, Twilight couldn't tell whether she was amused, disbelieving, or completely lost. Probably a bit of each. Twilight gave her a sheepish grin. I couldn't control my magic back then. To be honest, I'm still learning, but it's gotten a lot easier since Princess Celestia took me under her wing. She's the best teacher I've ever known, she smiled at the memory. Trixie looked down at the table. Trixie sees. Is something wrong? Asked Twilight. You haven't touched your cold salad. Neither have you, Trixie pointed out. She met Twilight's eyes with a thoughtful frown. There's more to the story, isn't there? Trixie wants to know what happened. Twilight furrowed her brow. What do you mean? It sounds like you had a wonderful life in Canterlot, but now you're living in Ponyville. Did something happen between you and the princess? Twilight smiled away to Hoof. Oh, nothing like that. The princess actually sent me here to take care of the festivities for the Summer Sun celebration. Trixie blinked. That was months ago. Well, that's not why I stayed, obviously, said Twilight, rolling her eyes. Did you hear anything about Princess Lia's return? Trixie blinked again. Don't tell Trixie you had something to do with that as well. Twilight bit her lip. Well, maybe just a little. Trixie listened intently as Twilight recounted the tale of how she and her new friends had set out on a quest to find the elements of harmony, ultimately using them to redeem the dreaded Nightmare Moon and single-handedly save Equestria. Trixie, having made up similar stories in the past, knew full well how to tell when some pony was embezzling a story for their own benefit. But as hard as Trixie wanted to believe otherwise, it seemed that Twilight was telling the truth. And then the princess turned to Luna and welcomed back with open arms. It was really touching. Of course, Piggy thought so too, and she wanted to throw a "Stop!" Trixie said. Twilight did so, cutting off mid-sentence and frowning at her. Is something the matter? Am I going too fast? I'm sorry, I guess I got carried away. Trixie shook her head. It's not that. Are you really telling Trixie that you embody the element of magic? Does anybody ever believe that? Twilight opened her mouth and huffed, looked down at the table. It does sound a little far-fetched, doesn't it? No, but it makes for a great series. Trixie mimicked her, frowning down, looking at her salad bowl. But it is true. Twilight nodded slowly. Not really that big of a deal, though. I've hardly told anybody about it. And Princess Celestia agreed to keep the details out of the papers. She agreed to, Trixie said, furrowing her brow at Twilight. You asked her to do that, but why? You would have been famous! A smile found its base on Twilight's face. Probably. That's why I wanted to keep it a secret. But that doesn't make any sense, said Trixie shortly. Well, would you want to see your face on the front of the newspaper? Countered Twilight. To have ponies coming up to you in the street, praising you whenever you walked out the door? Yes! Trixie said with exasperation. I can't believe you passed up an offer like that. Twilight chuckled. Maybe you could have been a better element of magic. Trixie opened her mouth to counter, but words caught in her throat. She broke for Twilight's gaze and turned to the side. Aye! Trixie couldn't do that. Why not? Said Twilight. You're a magician, aren't you? All those tricks you did in your magic show were really impressive. I saw how you stood up to that, Ursa. Don't make fun of me, Trixie snapped, casting a glare at Twilight. Twilight threw her hose up defensively. I'm not. Really, that was one of the bravest things I've ever seen. And I've seen some pretty brave things since I came to Pineville. Trixie shook her head, frowned sadly. Trixie made a fool of herself in front of every pony. How's that brave? Are you kidding? Twilight said. Standing up to something to protect those two colts, even when you had no idea how to vanquish it? You're practically a hero, Trixie. Don't hurt yourself, Twilight. Sworn Spike, trudging down the stairs and disappearing to the kitchen. Trixie stared silently at the table, her lip turned up in thought. Thinking back on it, she always did tell herself that she did what she did in a vain attempt to protect her rep, but she didn't really have much time to think back then. It's kind of difficult with an earth cell breathing down her neck. Is that really how it looked? Twilight seemed to hesitate. Well, I was kind of panicking at the time, so I don't know what everybody else was thinking, but yes, that's how you looked to me. Trixie pondered for a moment later, before shaking her head. Trixie couldn't think it though. A real hero would have thinked it. Not necessarily, said Twilight. Trixie looked at her questioningly. For her part, Twilight offered a faint smile as he went on. It's something Princess Celestia always used to tell me. Strength isn't always the way to be strong. Trixie stared at Twilight. Then she gave eye contact to give it some thought, before finally turning to stare again. That doesn't make sense, she deadpanned. Twilight giggled. That's what I told her. She never did tell me what it meant, but I always thought of it like this. Just because you can't physically do something on your own, doesn't necessarily mean you're weak. Sometimes, real strength is having the courage to move forward anyway. To stand up for your friends even when you know you can't win. Pausing, Twilight gave Trixie an even smile. And sometimes, just having the courage to ask for help. Trixie's mouth fell open a little, her tongue wandering around her mouth to make sense of Twilight's words. You're very thoughtful this evening, Twilight Sparkle, she muttered. Twilight's eyes widened as she blushed. Well, I guess you had that effect on me. Trixie found herself smiling at that. Anything else she had to say was preempted by the growling of her stomach. We should eat, she said abruptly, forcing her eyes down to her now untouched bowl of salad. Twilight cleared her throat and nod. Right, I'm starving.